Duran is on his way to Saudi Arabia. That is a done deal, as Shaka said. Over 70 million for a player that struggled to get in the starting 11. Of course, very much labelled as a super sub, still in his early 20s. Frank, would you have made this move?
At 20, no, never. Why do you want to leave top football? I mean, that's insane. You have to have in your blood the love of football. With all due respect for the Saudi Arabia championship, it's for almost retired people, and that's only fair. And I did that in Qatar, and we can see that sometimes in the MLS. We saw that before in Japan, but it's not for 20 years old. I mean, some people they think that it can come back. We have Fofana, who came back from Lens to we went from Lens to Saudi Arabia, then came back I think to Rennes, and it doesn't work. It doesn't work because it's too hard, because you drop your level. And again, it's not pointing the Saudi Arabian championship, it's that the Premier League is different. It's so faster, so much tactical. I mean, it's so much everything. And when you live to go there, where you have a chance to play for another club, you know, I thought it would be maybe a possibility for him to go maybe to Chelsea. I heard that at some point. Why do you want to go there? Well, you know, I know you want to protect your family and your kids when you will have one or two, and your grandkids after, but come on, that's not the thing that right now. You have to think about football and the love of football and the fact you play at the top level. That's insane. That's irresponsible from his agent to have pushed him to go there.
21-year-old he is, Kieran. If 21-year-old Kieran Gibbs had that offer, would you be tempted?
It's just so hard to say. I mean, no one's put a contract offer in front of me that was worth, I don't know how much I'm getting paid. So it's really hard to say. All I can say is that at 20, 21 years old, I was playing at Arsenal and I was happy and I was enjoying competing at the top level. I think it's, you know, it's every player's situation's different. You know, we don't know his situation, but you know, he's opted to go to Saudi. I just think the only thing I think is that at that age, it's very difficult to come back after. It's very difficult to come back after. So
what do you mean by that, Kieran? Just give us that a little bit more detail.
Well, when you've gone to a league, you know, like that, the level obviously isn't the same. I know they have attracted over recent years world-class players, but still the league is miles away from the standards of the Premier League. And so if you're playing there for a couple of years, I just would find it surprising that another team, you know, in the top 6, Villa are playing in the Champions League at the moment. I find it very, very surprising that a team would come in after you've been in Saudi for a few years and take you.
You might be getting paid well, and that's his prerogative, but you're in the football wilderness, aren't you? You know, and he's not getting £500 a week at Aston Villa.
No.
I would imagine he's on a pretty nice salary. At his age, you're looking for your trajectory in your career just to keep going up, as Frank said, when you hit your peak at sort of 25, 26, 27. And then when you're in your early 30s or whenever it is, maybe this will come along, but come on.
Shaka, you got a face which suggests you'd go.
Yeah. I would. So,
take that, Frank.
I would, these players are...
So now here's the thing. Talking to LME earlier, who knows some of the intricacies of this deal, he's saying that Duran is making 5 times what he's getting at Villa. That's hard to turn your back on. I don't care how old you are. 5 times of what you're making in the Premier League. You go there for 4 years, come back, you could restart in the Eredivisie and work your way up, whatever. But you've made your money now. I'm sorry.
So what if they started a Saudi Arabian FC?
You're so greedy, man.
Shaka, if they offered you 5 times, you'd haul the family over there?
Oh, I'd take this chair and everything with me. I'd be gone in a flash.
Well, there we go. Something for the future. One last thing on the strikers at Aston Villa. With Duran they're looking to maybe bring in someone else. Marcus Rashford on a loan deal is something that apparently Unai Emery is very, very keen on.
Well, as we sit here now, this is not a bad player. But this is a player with a bad attitude. So, when you look at some of the alternatives he's got up front and in the wider positions, Leon Bailey, not for me, doesn't do enough. Bit of a flash in the pan, bit like Anthony. You know, so he's maybe looking at covering a couple of areas. It just depends whether this sulking, everyone owes me a favour, sort of Marcus Rashford turns up. He's absolutely no good to anybody. Obviously, United would have to supplement his wages. So, I mean, it's a risk, but if the risk is mitigated and somewhat, and we talked about this, I don't know if it was, remember we talked about Philip Coutinho coming to Aston Villa a couple of years ago?
Yes, yeah.
And I don't know what the financial deal was, but it was like, how did Villa mitigate this risk in terms of what Coutinho are they going to get? And they got exactly what I think we thought they were going to get, somebody who was ineffective. If they can mitigate the risk on this deal financially and they're not stuck with him long term, maybe it could work if the screw down head Marcus Rashford turns up. But if they're taking all the risk and it's a deal that they can't get out of unless it's a loan to the end of the season, I don't really see why it's worthwhile.
Listen, I unashamedly, I like Marcus Rashford a lot.
He's off to Saudi Arabia with you.
Well, I'm happy to join me. But, from a Aston Villa and Unai Emery perspective, to Craig's point, if the numbers work, if Manchester United are willing to take on a big portion of his salary, absolutely, for the next 4 or 5 months, I take Marcus Rashford.
It's almost a no lose, isn't it? Like
Exactly. If it doesn't work, if it doesn't work, he goes back. I don't see that. I don't see that as being any kind of an issue. I would take that opportunity all day long, and there is huge upside for Marcus Rashford as well, given his issues with Manchester United. The other aspect to this is Amorim has just painted Marcus Rashford into a corner where he's been so critical of Marcus Rashford that now, if I'm a club coming in, if I was thinking about this early January, I'm thinking I have to come in and pay half his wages or whatever it may be. Amorim has been so scathing in his attacks over the last couple of weeks that now I realize they just want him out the door at any price. So now I figure I could go in for a whole lot less and make it even more attractive to me financially. So Amorim, I think, has played this poorly in terms of getting Rashford out the door, or at the very least, what they get for him if they get him out the door.
Think about what kind of manager Unai Emery is. He's a manager who doesn't sort of sit back like Eric Ten Hag or even Ruben Amorim and just sort of watch. And he's a manager who's on the touchline.
No, he's at the side of your bed as you're waking up.
So you
come on.
Yeah, he's harassing his players and he's driving them on and he's getting them to close down. Come on, they're kind of a mirror image of him with their work rate and their shape. The only thing is with Marcus Rashford, in the last couple of years, he's not bought into that at all. Now, can Leboeuf change their spots? I don't know. It's not much of a risk to the end of the season. I agree. But it has to be a hard-working Rashford whose attitude is correct. If that's so, it could help Villa. But I hope for the lad's case that kind of thing happens, because this continuation of Man United is becoming pretty ugly, isn't it?
It's toxic. It's exactly what it is. And of course, it escalated again this week with Amorim's comments, Kieran. What did you make of them obviously saying that he'd prefer his 62-year-old goalkeeping coach on the bench as opposed to someone who doesn't train with the sort of passion that he expects from his team?
I think he's handled it pretty poor. I think he started well and then it just kind of picked up so much momentum, and I think he couldn't really go back on his word after a certain point. And now it's just, like you said, it's just become extremely toxic. I think, a prime Marcus Rashford, Villa's going to bite your hand off any day. He has the ability to take them to another level. But I think just the current state of what's going on there between the club and the player, it's just gone so bad. It's gotten out of hand. And, it's poor because he's given that stigma now on Rashford that's been looming over him for a while, and it kind of kills him a little bit in terms of getting an opportunity somewhere else, because if you're going to kill a player that much, what manager's going to want to take you? So I find it a little bit strange that he's dragged it right through the mud like that. I don't think he meant to do it like this, but I think he went so far and he couldn't go back, and he's left himself with no choice but to just completely bury him.